What's going on, guys? I want to welcome you all to the first ever Flag Plus Football Junior Division podcast. My name is Brent Bach, and I'm your host for this podcast and the writer for FPF Junior. More importantly, however, I am joined by the president, the founder, the main man for FPF, Rob Campana. Rob, I want to say it's FPF, Flag Plus Football. This is your child. You started in 2005, had about 18 teams, 200 players. 12 years later, there's over 4,000 players, numerous teams. Again, this is your child. Part of that growth, though, however, is FPF Junior. What was your idea for starting FPF Junior?
Well, first off, I'm happy to be here, Brent. I think it's going to be a fun few weeks working together, previewing and recapping the, let's be honest, the funnest division in FPF. The FPF Junior program was essentially something that we thought, was a great fit for young kids from as young as 6 and 7 years old all the way up to 16-year-olds that are also playing in FPF Senior, as we're seeing this season. A lot of young kids out there that play tackle football during the season, during the fall. We're looking for something to continue to play the sport that they love in their off season. So we want to target those kids, and we also want to target the kids that love the sport, watch the CFL, watch the NFL every Saturday and Sunday throughout the year, but don't necessarily have the desire to play tackle football, take a beating out there on the gridiron. I was that type of kid. I always loved the sport, but I never played it. So FPF Junior provides an outlet for both those types of kids.
Again, last year was the first season for FPF Junior. You started off with about 65 players, give or take.
Yep.
And this year's in the second year, you guys have ballooned up to over 160 players, I believe.
Yeah.
And in your expertise, in your opinion, if you will, what do you think was the biggest reason for such a huge jump in the amount of players?
You know what, Brent? I think all of us, yourself included, with the work that you did last year, writing your article. As far as the coaches and all the other volunteers that put a lot of work into the program last year. And although it was small, there were only 6 teams, 3 in each division. We probably had bigger age groups than we wanted. We had some kids that were like 12 years old playing in some much younger kids. But I think parents and players got to see that we put a lot of hard work and passion into what we do here at FPF Junior, trying to provide the best, the best experience possible for the kids. And I think that word spread, and people were happy with it for the most part. And hence the growth this year. So hopefully it continues to make people happy and get bigger and bigger every year.
And I mentioned earlier, this season, FEF has been going on since 2005, and you mentioned as well some of the players that are a part of the league. Now, some of those players this year, like you guys, even last year, like guys like Jamil Springer, Vinny Gulano, Gino DeFazio, Tony Lala, guys that have been in the league for a long time.
Yeah.
They're giving back now by coaching some of these kids. For you, how important was it to get some of the original FPF players, some of the bigger names, if you will, to hop into the coaching ranks?
Yeah, it's great, Brent. I mean, we see it. These are the guys that love the sport. They know the sport like the back of their hands. I mean, football is football. Obviously, the game transcends across different, whether it's non-contact, contact, full-size field, mini field. But I mean, guys like the individuals that you mentioned and several others, they really understand the culture of FPF and how much people love it, how seriously people take it. They also understand the strategy behind it. So to get those guys to come out and kind of direct the kids into the onto the field and coach them up is really it's awesome. I love to see it, and I'm really appreciative for those coaches.
And now, if you're a parent, you mentioned obviously it is what it is. I mean, it's mostly parents who are registering their kids into this league. If you're a parent that's out here watching this podcast for the first time, or goes to Concordia on a Saturday, goes to the Dome in Kirkland, Bristol, wherever, and you want to put your kid into Flag Plus football, why is this a good alternative for them?
Yeah, good question, Brent. I mean, FPF Junior I think is just a fun place for young kids to play flag football. It's very safe compared to tackle football. It's a good chance for kids to come out, improve their skill set, especially for the kids that do play tackle football. Sharpen those skills, work on your route running, your catching of the ball, your the quarterbacks throwing the ball around. So I think it's really a great chance for kids to play in an experienced, well-run, organized league, and that caters to kids of that age.
I mean, personally, I got to say, I've been playing in the league for, I think, about 10 years now. And I think that one of the things that makes the adult league unique is the fact that you get guys at different levels of football, whether they're currently playing, they're former players, guys who just play pickup in the park. And you mentioned earlier, I mean, that's the same thing that's kind of have gone over now to the FPF junior side, where you get some kids who are playing tackle football. You get some kids maybe who they might play soccer, they might play hockey, they might have never even played football before, that are in the league now, trying it out and experiencing football for the first time. Why do you think that's important to have a huge variety of different kids?
Yeah, it's a good question, Brent. I mean, obviously we're still smallish at this point, so we can't really break ourselves up into many different divisions like we do on the adult side, where we can really cater to different calibers of player. But it's important because it's just nice to get a nice mix of kids out there. We've been speaking about it so far, and there's a lot of different kids out there with a lot of different backgrounds when it comes to football. But one thing we all share is a love for the sport. So to come out and play, and even if you're a kid that has never played an organized down of football, just played with some friends at school or whatever, to come out and play with some guys who are maybe a little more advanced. Maybe it takes a few weeks to kind of get their feet under them, but I could tell that a lot of those kids are still having fun, even though they're not putting up the statistics or the making the big plays that a lot of the more experienced kids are. You could see that they're enjoying themselves, and we've seen even from last year, Brent. I mean, there's a few kids that come to mind that really made a huge jump from the start of the season to the very end. And for us, I know yourself as well, it's really rewarding to see those kids improve so quickly.
And that's exactly it. I mean, I think it's kind of nice to see. You have a couple of kids who played in junior division. We said earlier, it was on the Division 6 podcast, this kid Avery Lala, who plays in FPF Junior, but he's also playing in the adult league as well.
Yeah.
So next question I want to ask you is, obviously you've put a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of effort into FPF, the adult league and the junior league. Where do you see the junior league growing? I mean, again, this is in the second year. The popularity seems to be going higher and higher, and you probably have more teams and more players next year. Where do you personally envision this in the next couple of years, the FPF junior division?
Yeah, good question, Brent. I mean, hopefully we continue to make people happy out there, that people are enjoying it. That's the number one goal. If people like it, they tend to spread the word. And for us, it's about having more and more kids. What's nice about it is that last year you could see that the kids really enjoyed themselves, Brent. But at a certain point, where whether you're a kid or an adult, sometimes it can get a little dull playing the same team over and over and over. Last year there were only 2 opponents for each team, 3-team divisions. So you could tell that the kids enjoy showing up for their 5th game of the season and still playing against a new team. So hopefully, as we grow, my goal would be not only to offer more kids, more places to play, but if we get to a point where we can also kind of specify locations, because there's some kids coming from as far out as Hudson and St. Lazare, and some of their games, unfortunately, are in St. Leonard. So it's not ideal. So the larger we grow, the more we can kind of segment some of the people into specific locations. And then ideally, a goal of ours as well, Brent, would be to basically create 2 divisions for each age category. One would be where you can basically come forth with your own team, like the Cougars did in the freshman division, or the Hurricanes in the sophomore. And the other division being for individual registrations. Hopefully, once we get to a point where there's enough of both, we can offer 2 different divisions, because I think we both agree that, teams joining as a group bring a little, it's usually a little more of an experienced group. They tend to be a little stronger for the most part. So hopefully one day we can get to that point where we can offer both separately.
And right now, you just mentioned there's a couple of different divisions. There's a freshman division, a sophomore division, and a varsity division. If you could just explain for the folks at home what those 3 divisions entail.
So the freshman age category ranges from kids born in 2006 to as far as 2010. It's mostly for 2009, but there are some 2010 kids whose parents obviously had to sign off on that and sign them up. But so some of those kids are quite young. The sophomore division is from 2003 to 2005. And then the varsity goes from kids born as early as January of 2000 to the end of 2002.
Okay. And finally, it's my last question. Is For the parents out there, again, who some of them are seeing this for the first time, some of it might be word of mouth, they hear about the league. How do parents who still want to get their kids in do that before the season's done?
They can always email us at info@flagplusfootball.com. We also have the registration form is still up for FPF Junior, so if parents do want to sign their kids up, we do still take late registrations. Some rosters are smaller than others, so it's always, it's always to our benefit to kind of fill up some of those smaller rosters. So absolutely, we, people still have a chance by going onto our website and contacting us directly.
All right. So, guys, I want to say the interview portion of this podcast is over.
That's it. Last time. Now we're officially a podcast as of now.
There you go. So, okay, so I just want to jump into some of the games. Again, I do some of the scorekeeping and I do the articles for FPF Junior. So some of the games that I saw this past Saturday at Concordia, Stinger Dome, if you will.
Yeah, so actually we should say that Brent is the scorekeeper at the Loyola Field, which is 2 games per week every Saturday. So what we're going to be doing from here on out for the rest of the podcasts, Brent is going to actually put a spotlight on those two games that he got to watch so closely and kind of give us some insight in addition to the statistics of the game. So go ahead, Brent.
So the first game we had in the freshman division was the Bruins taking on the Fighting Irish. Fighting Irish coming into the game, they were 0-2, struggled a little bit offensively. Going against the Bruins team was so far, it was pretty impressive, I gotta say. And the outcome of the games, not the most important thing, but I just gotta talk about the stats a little bit. You have William Leclerc from the Bruins going 8 of 12 for 121 yards and 4 TDs. He had a couple of receivers, Eloy Tremblay, Mauricio Mercury Jr. is a product of the Brent Bakken School of Hard Knocks football training. So he had a couple of TDs. The defense was looking really nice. Tremblay got 2 interceptions. Thomas Heeman's got 2 sacks as well. So, I mean, there's definitely a team on the rise.
And it's funny to watch them, Brent, because their coach, Gautama Swaminathan, who's been an FPF senior for many years. And Gautama is known, for those who know him out there, obviously not many watching this podcast, but for people in our adult league, he is a very, very smart play caller, and he's got a methodical offense. And this is something that we'll get to later in the show about just taking what the defense gives you, small passes, matriculate down the field. And if you watch them and you watch William Leclerc, as athletic and talented as he is, he uses his receivers like Mauricio, as you mentioned, as Eloi Tremblay, these sure-handed kids that, will make the catch and get the yardage one play at a time, right?
Well, there you go. That's exactly it. And again, going over to the other side of Fighting Irish, I mean, their teammate, as I mentioned, they struggled. They had no points first 2 games. They actually got 2 touchdowns. Daniel Taylor got a 40-yard TD run. He also caught a 15-yard pass from Kevin Payne DeSera. So, I mean, it's small steps for a team like the Fighting Irish. I mean, they're predominantly a first-year team coming together. A lot of guys who have never played with each other before.
Yeah.
So, it's small steps. I mean, yeah, would like to get a victory here and there for sure. But, I mean, it's early in the season. We're heading up to week 4 this coming weekend. So, I mean, there's lots of time for them to get better as a team. And, again, getting a couple points on the board, I think, for them was huge.
For sure. And speaking to Vinny Guilano, their coach, this past weekend, he had mentioned to me that, Kevin DeSera Payne, who you mentioned is their quarterback, had switched teams. He had started the season with the Ducks, but he's a youngster that has played some quarterback in tackle football, and he was looking to kind of throw the ball. So we decided to move him over to the Fighting Irish, and you could see that the kid has a will to win. He's very talented, throws a really good ball, but there's a bit of frustration when you're losing, right, kids? And anybody doesn't like to lose games, and but it's nice to see that in addition to the team speed, so the Fighting Irish, like you mentioned, Brent, a lot of young kids, a lot of beginners to the sport, but some raw athleticism here. 2 kids in particular, Daniel Taylor and Lucas Fleet. I've seen a few instances where they got the ball in their hands and they're deep in their own end and managed to run through the entire opposing defense. So with Vinny and Phil, their 2 coaches, working on trying to get things a little more structured. But they have a solid quarterback. They have some good athletes out there. So hopefully before the end of the season, we'll start to see some more W's for them.
Yeah, definitely the building blocks in place for the Fighting Irish. We'll have to see how they fare the rest of the season.
Yep.
The other game I got a chance to see was the Hawkeyes against the Buckeyes. Coming to the game, the Hawkeyes, they were 2-0, taking on a Buckeyes team. I believe they were 1-2. I believe. 1-1 heading into that game. Let me just double check my stats here. The Buckeyes.
I believe they were 2-0 as well, right, going into the game?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. Okay. 2-0. Pardon me. Yeah, they were 2-0 heading into that game. So a battle of undefeated teams. The Hawkeyes, however, offensively they look really good. They ended up winning that game 24-6. I got to see their quarterback, Kalen Trepanier, who went 15.
Andy Dalton.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
What a stud.
That's exactly what I thought. I saw the ginger hair, and I was like, Andy Dalton Jr. right there. He had 175 yards, 3 TDs. He made lots of plays with his legs. He had about 64 rushing yards and another TD on the ground. I got to say, he looked really good. He had a big arm. He was accurate. Again, he was able to move the chains, if you will, with his legs. He's better than a couple of quarterbacks I've seen in the adult league as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Kalen Trepanier is the real deal. They call Andy Dalton the Red Rifle, so I guess he's like the Red Shotgun. Really talented kid, even on the defensive side of the ball, Brent.
Yep.
He's new to the league, and one of the things when we were setting up the teams and so on before the season, always we tended to always see the returning kids as always being because we're familiar with them, we understood how strong they were and what they brought to the table. And the Buckeyes, coached by Teddy Fournette, are a really talented team. A lot of good kids out there. A lot of kids that did play in FPF Junior last year. And Trey Bentley, as I'm sure you'll get to, is the real deal. He's awesome, an unbelievable young prospect as a quarterback. But Kalen Trepanier is right there with him. This kid is definitely the real deal. So I'm glad you see it the same way as I do, and it's hard to not see it that way because he's just so talented and his numbers have been so good so far.
Well, that's exactly it. And going over to the other side, you mentioned Trey Bentley. I mean, last year he's arguably the best quarterback in the junior division. Struggled a little bit though. I think on Saturday he went 7 of 15 for 85 yards, 0 touchdowns.
What did you see? If you don't mind, sorry, Brent, but just to jump in there, did you notice anything that the Hawkeyes kind of threw at him?
You know what it was actually? I can't even put all the blame on Bentley. There was a lot of drops though by his receivers.
Okay.
I counted at least in the first half alone. There's about 4 drops.
Okay, wow.
Some of the passes were to wide open receivers as well. So I think it's just a bit of maybe a bit of nerves, maybe a bit of lack of concentration with the kids. But I mean, I expect bigger and better things out of this Buckeyes team as the season goes on. Again, they took their first loss of the season. It was hopefully for them, it's going to be an eye-opener.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of talent. I mean, they have Jaden Edgehill, they have Jaden Fournette, Teddy's kid. There's a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, absolutely.
They may be a little bit asleep at the switch, if you will, maybe Saturday.
And one of our favorite players in all of FPF Junior, Max Arnovitz, who's young enough to play in the freshman division, but insisted on playing with his big brother Ben this year in sophomore, and he's doing actually quite well considering the age gap. So who knows, Brent? Maybe we'll see this matchup again come playoff time, maybe even in the finals.
And that's exactly it. Speaking to your point, actually, the Arnovitz brothers weren't there for that game.
Okay.
I got to say, Max is my main man, a fellow 49ers fan.
Poor guys, you and him.
Yeah, it's a tough season. So we're gonna skip this. Pardon me. We're gonna finish off with the recap. We're gonna jump in to a little debut segment, if you will. This is gonna be the outside the box scores. I mentioned a few seconds ago, guys like Trey Bentley, obviously in this league, Caden Dewey. There's a lot of kids. The whole Edge Hill clan, from Juwan on down, Jaden as well. There's a lot of players in this league, especially last season, who ended up being in the stat sheets a lot. Avery Lala.
The list goes on.
It goes on and on. But again, you see players you look on TV, the playoffs this past week, and even the whole NFL season. You guys have Odell Beckham Jr., Tom Brady, Adrian Peterson. Those are the stars of the team. They get all the spotlight, get all the interviews, end up on Sports Center.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, right? Deservingly so. But playing football, I mean, you play football as well, and you know that it's a team sport, and just because you're not getting the most stats or the most highlights doesn't mean you're not helping your team win.
Absolutely, and that's important for the kids on any in any division of FPF Junior. It's important to know that despite the fact that maybe your name isn't all over the stat sheet, football is not a game that's won solely on the performance in the box score. As Brent is alluding to, there's a lot of intricacies within the game, a lot of plays throughout the game, and that maybe aren't picked up by Brent on the score sheet, but it make a difference in the end and make a difference between either winning or losing. So I think this is what the segment's all about, right, Brent?
But that's exactly it. I mean, it can be something as simple as getting a tackle, something as simple as helping a teammate get open, getting a good snap off to the quarterback, which especially in this division is a lot harder because it's the first time a lot of these quarterbacks are working out of the shotgun primarily. So, I mean, we have a couple of players I just want to mention right here.
So this segment is called?
Again, outside the box score.
Outside the box score. All right. So Brent and I each week will be pointing out a few players that we think deserve a little more of a spotlight than they may be getting through the box scores. So go ahead, Brent. You can start.
There you go. So I'm going to go with my choice from the aforementioned Hawkeyes, Sasa Masikot. Sasha had a quiet game on Saturday. Again, his team got the win. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. And he had, so far for the season, he has 6 tackles and a pick 6 and 1 pass defended. I mean, do the stats necessarily blow you away? No, but you know what? His team is undefeated. He's playing a big part in his team's 3-0 start.
Good choice. I'm going to go actually, Brent, with a returning name from last year, and it's Alexis Dubois. So this is a young man who's playing in the varsity division. He played with the Crimson Tide last year, and this year he's playing for Avery Lala's Horned Frogs. And Alexis is a kid who doesn't put up a huge amount of stats, but he's a really, really solid defensive player. This is a guy that you can put against a really good receiver, and he will do a great job at shadowing him throughout the game. And this past week, actually, he ended up making a really great defensive play to intercept the ball, and then actually deked out the whole entire opposing offense, I should say, and returned it for a pick 6. So I was really happy to see that for a player like Alexis, who's not someone who shows a lot of emotion. He's quite quiet, but when he makes a big play, you see it, and it matters even in the score sheet. Despite what the segment's all about. So that's my first pick. Go ahead with your second, Brent.
Okay, my second and final pick, I got to say, is going to be Cameron Moncler. He had a big game. I mean, so far earlier in the season, his numbers weren't that huge. But I mean, he actually did have a big game on Saturday with 7 catches for 96 yards.
Wow, that's pretty big, Brent.
And a TD. Well, that's exactly it. It's better than anything I put up last Saturday night in my team's debut game of the season. He's a guy that has no tackle football experience whatsoever.
Wow.
And once again, as we mentioned, that speaks to the diversity of FPF Junior. Again, he had a huge game. He played a big part in his team's W. And again, he's not one of the bigger names on the roster sheet, if you will. But
maybe
again,
soon, but not yet.
Maybe soon. Yeah, Zach Knight is still early, but I mean, he made a difference.
Absolutely.
And,
good for him.
His team got the W.
With no football experience. Wow, good for you. Not you, Brent. You, Cameron. So my last guy that I'll mention is another young stud in the sophomore division. He plays for the Seminoles, and he's actually the snapper. His name is David Bensamana. He played last year in our inaugural season as well. He played for a team called the Wolverines. So both years he's been coached by Kevin Wyatt. And Kevin, for those of you who know him in the adult division, loves to use a snapper. And you see that with David because he piles up the receptions, but he's such a reliable weapon. He's a small kid. This week he was being covered or covering on both sides of the ball a young boy who was a lot bigger than him, bigger and taller. But David really puts up a fight. He's a smart little crafty player. He knows how to get open underneath, makes those catches, and gains yardage. And in the end, like Brent and I will get to in a bit, it's very important to use your snapper for quarterbacks. That's always your safety blanket, just like you see in tackle football, the dump-off passes to the running back. That's the equivalent in flag. So David Bensamana, I see you. Keep it up. You're doing a great job.
All right. So now we're gonna go to another segment called the FPF Junior Huddle. What are we talking about, you might be asking? What that is just a couple of pointers that Rob and I have come up with for you guys, for the kids. Because, I mean, again, we've been in this league. Obviously, Rob's been in the league since the beginning. I've been in the league for a long time. And just a couple of pointers that we want to give you guys in terms of how to get better. I mean, obviously, you guys have great coaching. This is not a slam against the coaches at all whatsoever. The coaches are doing a fantastic job, actually. But just a little something, just a little extra.
Views from the sideline.
There you go, a little views from the sideline. There you go, that's exactly it. So the first thing I want to say is I noticed last year and as well as this year, whether it's the adult division or the kids division, everyone tries to go deep. Everyone wants to make those highlight throws, those highlight catches, end up on the game of the week, if you will. I think taking the shorter passes and taking what the defense gives you is the smartest option to go with.
Absolutely. They call it a serious case of deepitis, and a lot of quarterbacks suffer from it. And you know what? Let's be honest. When you head out to the schoolyard or to the park with your buddy, no one's throwing 5-yard hooks, right, Brent? That's not a fun play. No, no one really loves a 5-yard hook. Everybody loves, the deep bomb, post, corner, post, all these fun double, triple moves, even at a young age group. But absolutely, as Brent alluded to, for quarterbacks, and I hear a lot of coaches trying to drill that into their quarterback's mind, is even though it's not as fun to instead of airing out the ball, like I said, for 20, 30 yards, to just kind of dink it off and dump it down. Very important. Take what the defense gives you. Remember, you have 4 chances to gain those 15 yards for midfield and then those 25 yards. Take advantage of the full 4 plays. You don't need to score on the first one.
And speaking of which, Kalen Trepanier, who we mentioned earlier, who had a big day last Saturday, he started off that game going deep a lot, and most of his passes were falling incomplete. He started thinking and dunking down the field, and, by the end of the game, again, he had 175 yards and 3 TDs.
Wow.
Can't do better than that. Another thing I find, especially in the adult league, my team as well is guilty of this, is not game tackling. We mentioned in football, you want to get a hat on a hat when someone has the ball, especially a running back. You want to get a group of tacklers going in. Same thing for flag football, guys. What you got to do when someone has a flag and they're running, leave your man and go get them. Once the pass is completed, once the ball leaves the quarterback's hand, you guys got to chase whoever has the ball. You can't just assume that the person covering the receiver is going to make the tackle.
Yeah, and you know what, Brent? To be fair, having played also some touch football a few years back, where laterals past the line of scrimmage were allowed, sometimes you would have to stay disciplined as a defender, because if everyone would converge onto the ball carrier, he or she did have the opportunity to lateral the ball across the field if they wanted to. In FPF, once a reception is made, the person can't do anything with it other than run forward. So there's no reason, like Brent said, to stick to your man, converge, take away their angles, because you never know, one missed flag and the person can take off for 40 yards for a long touchdown. So it's always better to get as many hats, as Brent says, on the ball as possible.
Another one I find, especially even myself, I'm 35 years old and I'm still playing ball, and I find, especially for the kids, fighting the nerves, Trust me, guys, I get nervous playing football, whether I play tackle football or now in FPF. I get nervous before a game sometimes. And then for you guys at home, especially little guys, it's okay. It's fine. You know what? If you drop a pass, fine. Go on to the next play. Don't worry about it. You're all there. Your family's there. You might have some friends coming up to the game. You know what? There's a reason why you're playing. You're good. You do what you do. Once the whistle blows, don't worry about the rest.
Perfectly said. Can't add much to that.
All right. I finally just want to say, getting everybody involved. I mean, obviously, we mentioned some teams have star players, but you know what? People are signing up. People want to come out and play. Some people, again, in their off-season, other kids experiencing football for the first time. You know what? Spreading the ball around to everybody. Letting everyone get a taste of the ball, to experience it. Because you know what? I played a lot of sports growing up as a kid, so have you, Rob. I think football is the greatest sport in the world. You get a group of guys, a group of girls coming together, you know, different backgrounds, different religions, different cultures, so on and so forth, coming together as one, making a team, getting one goal, one drive to win that championship, and you know what, for the kids especially to have fun as well. So I think getting people involved, making everybody feel a part of the team, no matter whether the best player on the team or the worst player or a so-so player, get everybody involved and just have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely, Brent. I mean, that's the only downside I would say about football is, you know, in most sports, if you play soccer, if you play hockey, when the ball comes to you or the puck comes to you, you know, you got to make a play. But in football, sometimes, especially if you're on the offensive side of the ball's not being thrown to you. Sometimes it's a little difficult, and it can get discouraging as a receiver. But remember that everything you're doing out there, even the routes you're running, if the ball's not coming to you, you're still an important clog in the system, because the way where you're leading your defender in front of you to open up space for someone else. But absolutely, Brent, I agree with you. And even for quarterbacks, it is important to include as many of your receivers as possible, because as a defense, and I've heard some coaches in FPF Junior mention it around me and to me directly, is that if some quarterbacks zone in on just one or two receivers, it makes it a lot easier for the defensive game planning. You know, I mean, you know who to cover, you know where the ball is going. So absolutely, Brent, great point.
All right, so again, that was the FPF Junior Huddle. We're gonna keep that on as the season goes along. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Again, right now we have finally, what we have now is a preview of the upcoming Week 4 games. Week 4 will start this Saturday at the Stinger Dome at 1 p.m. So a couple of games we have going on right here is the 2-1 Bulldogs taking on the 1-2 Longhorns. These two teams met up in Week 1. The Bulldogs came away with a 31-26 victory. Who do you pick, Rob, in this game?
I don't know about a pick, Brent, but I'll definitely tell you that Sam Crudo has really come along for the Longhorns as their quarterback. In the first week, he was still kind of trying to fight his legs under him. Coach Dave Allen was playing around with a few different quarterbacks. He seems to have settled on Sam, and the Longhorns are looking pretty good. They came off their first victory. The Bulldogs are just coming off their first defeat, so something's got to give. It should be a pretty good game. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Right after that, we have the 1-2 Musketeers taking on the undefeated 3-0 Ducks. How do you see that one shaping up?
You know what? I have to say that the Musketeers coaches, Gino DeFazio and Giulio D'Alessio, along with Gab Wiseman, now another FPF veteran, are really coaching up their kids quite well, actually, and they've come a long way even in only the 3 weeks so far. But I have to say that adding Malachi Roach to the roster for the Musketeers, as well as Isaiah Roach, his brother, at the receiver position, Malachi being the quarterback, has brought these kids, a different element. They're also good players on the defensive side of the ball, and there's a lot of good players on the Musketeers team. Alexis Ortega Crudo, who was actually Sam Crudo's younger brother, who I just mentioned earlier, really a game changer on defense. So who knows? Maybe we'll see an upset here for the Musketeers.
Okay. And after that, we have the 3-0 Horned Frogs taking on the 0-3 Spartans.
Something's got to give here. The Spartans, led by Ryan Garber, who is our poster boy, as most people know, for our FPF Junior campaign this year. Ryan is an excellent quarterback. He's also doing really well on defense this year, I should say. Ryan, though, does have to do a bit of a better job of distributing the ball, because we see, as great as Adam Maroos is, defenses seem to be zoning in on him and making it harder and harder for them to complete all those passes. So I think the Spartans, with a little more of a balanced offense, their defenses look pretty good so far this year. I could see them upsetting the Horned Frogs if they play their cards right.
Okay. And right after that, we have the 1-2 Hurricanes taking on the Seminoles.
That's another good game here. The Hurricanes this was one of the teams that we alluded to, the tackle teams kind of coming together as one. They seem to have made a switch at quarterback. They had started the season originally with another quarterback, but they seem to have switched over to Connor Wright, who seems to be doing quite well. He led them to a victory this week. Nicholas Masella seems to have been standing out for them as a receiver and DB. So the Hurricanes are definitely looking like the real deal. On the Seminoles side, It's a lot of the kids from the Wolverines team last year that Kevin is coaching. A special shout out to Dean Fleming, though, who's had a pretty good start to the season despite his team struggles. So hopefully it's a close game, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, the 0-3 Seminoles looking to get up to Schneid in that one. We also have the aforementioned Wolverines, the new version of the Wolverines, if you will, taking on, at 1-2, taking on the 2-1 Bruins.
Yeah, that should be a great game. So the Bruins are 2-1. They seem to have really found their stride. William Leclerc, as we spoke about earlier, really, really talented football player at quarterback. But the Wolverines have no slouch themselves with Tristan Henson at quarterback. He's a real stud. Anyone who's seen this kid throw, you say, wow, he's like a little guy, but he throws the ball like a seasoned vet. There's some pretty good kids. There's a kid they call Tank Van Domelen who plays both ways for the Wolverines. Really, really good player to keep an eye on. So, again, maybe an upset in the making here with the Wolverines.
All right, Tank sounds like my kind of kid, I tell you
that. Yeah.
Okay, so we have next coming up is David DeAndre's 3-0 Hawkeyes. I just want to give a special thank you to David for getting back to me with a little bit of info for the team. So the Hawkeyes taking on the 1-2 Gators.
Yeah, the Gators, good team on paper. Their quarterback Vincenzo Frank. I've seen him play one game. He's got all the tools you want from a quarterback. Great arm, lots of speed. I think this is a case that we were talking about earlier. Deepitis. Vincenzo just simplifies things. He's got a good coach with Kevin Cousset, I'm sure, who's in his ear telling him this. There's some talented kids on that team. Just slow things down, and I think the Gators will be all right.
All right. So one of the last two matches coming up is the 0-3 Fighting Irish. We talked a bit about them before.
Yeah.
Taking on the 2-1 Cougars.
Yeah, the Cougars are definitely a well-oiled machine. Tristan Dermody at quarterback, Logan Trepanier playing both ways. Seem to be the two standouts so far for the team, but this is definitely a pretty strong group of kids. But hey, the Fighting Irish, we spoke about their quarterback, DeSaris Payne, coming along, all that team speed. So hopefully they can get their game plan together and maybe cause a nice big upset this week in week 4.
All right, and finally we have a battle of 2-1 teams with the Red Devils taking on the Buckeyes.
The Red Devils quarterback, Noah Lachance, is someone you do not want to sleep on. Trey Bentley gets a lot of love, and deservedly so. He's awesome. But Noah Lachance might even be better. This is really a battle of two stud quarterbacks. Both teams are really well coached, really organized. If you've seen the Red Devils prepare on the sideline, Brent, I don't know if they've played in Loyola yet, but Kat Pichet, who's their assistant coach, she's played with the Fleur de Lis, which is one of the most famous touch football teams in Canada. The discipline of this team, you're just seeing them, they look like the old Soviet Union hockey teams that come out in order of height. Really, really well organized, really well coached team. But Teddy Frenette also is very organized and has a great team with him. So I expect this to be the game of the week. If you can make it out to watch it, please do. It should be a shootout, and we'll see who comes out on top.
All right, so that is it for the picks, and that is it for this podcast. I want to say thank you guys for tuning in for this history-making podcast, the first ever in FPF Junior history. Once again, I am Brent Bakken. I'm joined by the main man himself, Rob Campana. And Rob, I got to give you some condolences for Alabama Crimson Tide losing last night.
Can't win them all, right? Can't win them every year.
ACC for life. So yeah, tough loss for Rob last night in his Crimson Tide. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday with podcast number 2 of FPF Junior. Have a good night.